Hello everyone, this is PHTV4 in Palos Heights. I'm Sue Jankowski. Welcome to Meet with Moraine. This is a program we do every month, and we find out all kinds of things about Moraine Valley Community College, which is right in Palos Hills. You've probably driven by there, or maybe you've even taken some classes there, I hope. And we're going to find out more and more information today. We're so happy to have two guests here today, and that is Jessica Contreras. Welcome, Jessica, today.
Thank you.
Nice to have you here. And we have Teresa Hannon. Welcome, Teresa. Nice to see you. They come from the Counseling and Career Development Center. Jessica is the director of the Counseling and Holistic Student Support, and Teresa is a counselor there. And that is just so wonderful and so needed. So I'm really anxious to hear all about this today, but you are too. But first, we always like to find out a little bit about our guests and how they arrived at Moraine Valley and just a little bit about them personally. So we'll start with Jessica. Jessica, tell us a little about yourself and how did you come to be at Moraine Valley?
Thank you. So my name is Jessica Contreras. I am a licensed clinical professional counselor as well as a certified alcohol and drug counselor. Prior, when I started my career in counseling, about almost 10 years ago, I started in community mental health. I actually worked as a child and adolescent counselor and substance abuse prevention counselor in Oak Forest, so not too far from here. Mm-hmm. Did a lot of work in community coalitions as well as some advocacy for mental health needs. And then about 5 years ago, I entered into kind of more of the higher ed realm. Started at Joliet Junior College working on mental health and providing mental health services to students. And now I'm here at Moraine Valley as the Director of Counseling and Holistic Student Support to continue building the program. Well, actually expanding on the program. We have a great program there. There's been many years of work that's been put in by our counselors there. And so I'm coming in to just really work on some mandates and really bolstering some of the support we provide students there on campus.
That's wonderful. So you had like a lot of steps to get to where you are right now, a lot of experience. That's great. Teresa, how about you?
My name is Teresa Hannon. I'm also an LCPC, and I actually came to Moraine as when I first graduated high school before I transferred to U of I and majored in psychology. And then I went on to get a degree in marriage and family counseling because I was going to work with families and couples. However, about a year and a half after I graduated, I was working in a community mental health agency, and I thought, you know, I would love to just teach some courses. That's how I found the adjunct position at Moraine Valley as a college counselor. And that was in 2000, and I haven't looked back. I've been in college counseling, left Moraine for a little while, came back 14 years ago, and it's just been my passion. It's exactly where I need to be.
That's wonderful. You all have different paths that lead you to what you're doing. And I think that's important for young people to know that you might think one thing, but then it could change to something else, and then it could change again. And that's okay. You don't have to decide things when you're 17, 18, 19 years old. You will figure it out as you go along. I think that's really important. I'm glad you guys both mentioned that. Now, what kind of services do you offer students with the Counseling and Career Development Center? What would they find there?
Yeah, there is a number of supportive services that we provide students. And first thing first, services there are completely confidential and they're completely free to our students at Moraine. So that's kind of a big component, especially with some of the expenses that mental health can kind of bring. Any kind of support can be expensive sometimes in the community, especially if you're not covered by insurance or are underinsured. So that is a great benefit to our students. And the way I look at it is, with our counseling services, there are kind of three main routes, which is looking at academic counseling, career counseling, and personal counseling. And they each kind of focus on a specific need for our students, but we often find that when a student comes in and meets with a counselor, we're kind of tapping into each part, right? Because that makes up the student experience. There are some other services that we provide in programming that are really kind of central around some of the mandates that we're seeing at a state level. So there are a couple of mandates, our Mental Health Early Action on Campus Act that is kind of bolstering some of the services that are provided to students on a mental health need. Our House Liaison, which is working with students that are either homeless or at risk of homelessness. Our Hunger Free Campus, which is looking to help students that are facing food insecurities, and our benefits navigator mandate that is also looking to kind of create more of a wraparound approach with students is with connecting them with either government assistance or other needs that are within the community that they may benefit from. And so that's where Teresa really comes in and helps us more with that. So I'll kind of have her share some of the other aspects of the things we
so
offer.
at the beginning of this semester, Moraine Valley decided, because of these mandates and because the state and higher ed has recognized the severe needs of our students. We have a lot of students that are suffering from food insecurity. Even if they're not sleeping out on the street, they might be homeless in the fact they don't have a stable place every night to stay, and that in itself is considered homeless. So the state of Illinois has put together some mandates for us as higher ed professionals to make sure that we're supporting our students. We do know when students don't have their basic needs met, they can't perform well academically. And so I think it's a great opportunity. I now have this new position as the coordinator of student support resources, and it's meant to be, I am by no means the only one on my team that will be doing this work, but me and Jessica will both be really looking at all the resources to really support our students the best way we can.
You know, that's so interesting too, because I think that sometimes people think, well, if they need some help, they can, go and ask for it or whatever. But I think people don't know, where do you go and ask for it? Who do I talk to?
Right.
What is there available?
Right.
I don't know any of those things.
Right.
They need guidance to do that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's when they come to you, and it's nice to know that everything is kind of just very anonymous. If they need help, they can get it without, it being an issue, which I think people can be very self-conscious about some of these things.
Yeah.
Which I know we're working to combat, that we shouldn't be self-conscious. If we need help, we should be asking for it. Okay, so first of all, so this is a counseling center. Are there a lot of counselors, and if they're there, what kind of credentials do you need to be a counselor at Moraine Valley?
Well, I'll kind of have you share a little bit more of the team.
Yeah, so we have currently we have 6 full-time counselors, they're faculty members, and 6 adjunct counselors. And so all of them are licensed credentialed professionals. Most of us have the clinical license as well. A few are still working on that, but we all have to maintain continuing education units, our confidentiality, our professional ethics. So, and that's why the confidentiality is such a big piece of that. We need to make sure there's a safe place for our students to just come and share and not worry. So that's pretty much what we have in our department. We do have some social work trained and counseling trained people. We all do the same thing. We're kind of trained the same way.
That's a lot of people. I mean, really, that's a lot of people. I know the school is very big. There's a big student body, but I mean, that's wonderful that there's so many people available for students.
Well, and we also focus on not just the credentials, but also making sure that we have a very kind of diverse team along that kind of reflects the demographics of the campus, right? We want our students to come in and be able to find counselors that they can connect with or feel like our counselors have some understanding of some of those cultural aspects that play into how they view the world or the challenges they face as a student or even as an individual in the community. And so on top of our credential staff, we also have 2 peer educators, which are actual students of Moraine, and they are a great tool for us because they are the students. They come in and kind of give us that student perspective. We work with them to plan programming or outreach. And you mentioned earlier, how not all our students are aware of those services, and that's another aspect we work on, right? Really, how do we outreach and let students know that these services are available, and not just the services, but the resources and other opportunities they may have in our office.
Yeah, that is so true. I mean, because you have all kinds of different counseling. I'm looking at guidance counseling, personal counseling, academic, financial counseling. So, I mean, there's a broad spectrum of things that students could need there. And so, you mentioned diversity, but you also need someone who's, a good financial counselor or a good personal counselor. There's a lot of hats that someone might have to wear.
Yeah, and you were speaking to the number of counselors, but beyond just seeing students in our department, we also do a lot of outreach programming, prevention programming. We work with faculty to go into their classes and just talk about stress management or time management or procrastination. I'm actually doing one today. So So we're doing a lot of that. We're touching students just not in the counseling realm. We also are working with students in the classroom, and we also teach a small curriculum. We have a career planning course, HDV 111, and a healthy relationships class, which is HDV 100. And those are classes that we teach several sections each semester. So that's an additional thing that we do. So that's why I love this, because I can do all kinds of different things.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think that's a wonderful thing to go into classrooms, because maybe somebody really doesn't have like a particular outstanding problem, but it's really good to hear about time management, or how to manage your stress or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not like someone like completely stressed out, but some tips are always great.
Yeah.
So that's a great thing too, that you're circulating into the classroom. Wonderful. So can students just walk in and say, hey, I'm here, or do they need an appointment? Does someone need to refer them? How do they go about getting the help that they need?
Yeah, so we really want to meet students where they're at, which is why we try to do a variety of programming as well as the direct services. And so doing the outreach really just helps the students be aware that we're there, and then if they want to have that one-on-one support, we try to make it as accessible as possible. So students can call into the center and make an appointment via phone. They can send an email. They can also make an appointment. We're hoping soon to have it online so that they have accessibility to that at any point 24/7 to make an appointment. So we are trying to streamline those services. But we also know that sometimes students just need kind of that immediate support. So what we try to do in the center is create some drop-in opportunities so that there is always a counselor available, that if they just need that immediate support, they can come to the space, they can say, I need to speak with someone now, and then we'll navigate with them and see who's available. So we, like I said, we really want to meet with where they're at. So if they have time to make an appointment and get a full appointment, we'll work with them. But if they need to be seen immediately, then we'll do what we need to do to make sure they get that support.
That's a great system. Now I'm thinking about, there must be times where, they need more help than you can give.
Correct.
How do you go about that? Is there some place you refer them to? Do you make suggestions? I mean, how do you go about doing that? Because some people have some really serious problems that, maybe they need something really special with someone else at a different location.
Yeah, if I could speak to that, one of the things we do as counselors is we're just trying to get the story. We want to know what the story. We don't do diagnosis because we do not do therapy, but we want to know how big the problem is from the get-go, okay? And sometimes, as Jessica had indicated, I'm going to come in for career counseling, and we don't talk about careers at all. We're talking about our financial issues. We talk about our, our career, our personal issues. So there are times when students do need more support than we can give in the shorter sessions that we have. And so we do a good job of connecting them either to, if they have insurance, try to get them connected to a provider that accepts insurance. A lot of our students do not have insurance, so then we have to provide them information and get them connected to community agencies. So it's the realm. It's like, we do it all. And that piece has kind of a case management piece to it. We've always done that, and I think we all do a good job. And if we don't know a good resource for a student, we're always consulting with each other. We're like, hey, do you know this? Or the student lives over here. Do you have a good counselor? Do you have a good community agency? And and that's really great about what's with the team. When you can work with a team, you can just bounce ideas off of each other.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, because you want that person to get the help that they need.
Correct.
And if you can identify somewhere and someone in your group can help them learn to go somewhere elsewhere, that's really great. I guess too, we talk on and off about the effects of the pandemic. I mean, it was huge, and I will say, we still are in that. There's still issues with that. People are still getting sick. People still feel the effects of that isolation and that lack of communication and social interaction. So I would think you're still seeing that too. So would you say that there's a lot more like serious problems out, or just a lot more problems in general? Or are people like more likely to ask for help because it's like more okay now to get help?
It's a little bit of both, and I think that going back to what we were talking about is working with the student. We want to be collaborative with our student and really understand what is the exact needs that they have, right? And I will say, I've only been in this role for a month, so I'm still learning kind of the ebb and flows of what Moraine kind of looks like in our counseling center there. But being in higher ed, for the past 5 years, I can say that the severity and the acuity of mental health needs our students are coming in are much more severe, and it's much more intense. And so part of it has been the pandemic. I think part of it has been kind of the adjustment and, like you said, more conversation about mental health, which is great. But then we see more students really kind of self-diagnosing or really kind of coming in with their own theories, which is great. And so part of us is working with them to really identify, is it genuinely kind of something that you're coming in and suspecting it is, or how do we provide some education and really identify what is going on so that we can connect them to the right resources, right? And so that's kind of part of my role coming in, as well as working on building more community connection, more connection with our community partners, so that when we do need to make these referrals, we're able to do so in a way that's kind of in a more warm handoff, so our student is well prepped and kind of knows what that process looks like. They're not navigating this on their own, because mental health can be kind of confusing sometimes, especially when it comes to services. And then really making sure that it's a good fit for them. And so we want to just not refer to one provider, but have a connection with many different community providers, so that we can help our students find a fit that's best for them.
I wonder if there are sometimes an instructor may kind of see a problem and refer that student to you. I mean, is that kind of like you have to use like kid gloves to, you don't want them thinking that their teacher is pointing them out particularly, or maybe they're grateful for that. I'm not sure which works.
It's been my experience, and I've been in college counseling a really long time. I think students really appreciate when their faculty reaches out to them and says, hey, I'm noticing this. I'm noticing you were turning in homework, and now all of a sudden you're not coming to class, you're not turning homework. Are you okay? Do you know there's services here? And we've had a lot of faculty members just simply walk the student over, and that's beautiful. That's what the warmest handout you can get, because that shows the student that the instructor cares, and that obviously that Moraine has services to provide help for those students. So those happen a lot. I wanted to go back to what you said about the pandemic and how things have changed. There have been a slow increase in mental health concerns around people of all ages for a number of years. We don't want to get into why that is. I have some theories, but the pandemic completely amped it up. The most prevalent issue we have with our student population is family issues, anxiety issues, and then financial issues. And that has made such a deep impact with our students. They are really struggling. And even if they have the funds, because they have family that can support them and that sort of thing, they're just struggling navigating socially in a way that I hadn't seen in the past. And it's quite concerning. And I also teach classes, and I'm noticing a shift in how students, they don't communicate with each other. All are on their cell phone. You walk in and they're all on their cell phone. And so, again, I'm not against cell phones, but I think there's been kind of a disconnect on how to really connect with each other.
How to relate to another person, how to talk to each other. I see that all the time. There'll be a bunch of young people at a table, and every single one has a phone on. I actually think they're talking to each other, but they're not talking. I'm like, why? You're here together. You should be talking. But that is a thing. And when you're isolated for a while, and that becomes the norm, then to undo it is, it's a process, really. And that's good that you have outlook and that's happening.
The other thing I want to say with the pandemic, if somebody had told me before the pandemic I was going to do virtual counseling, I'm like, no, I got to see people face to face. I need to be in the room. But man, that was a savior. Because we were on spring break when the pandemic hit, and we just had to figure out a way to meet with our students. And I remember meeting with students. They're on their cell phones in the car, and I'm on Zoom or WebEx, whatever we were using at the time, and it was a savior. So we've opened our access, and I think that's been really helpful. So that's part of the reason probably our numbers have gone up as well, is that students were just more accessible.
As that's good.
Support.
But you're also more aware, and I think a lot of people are more comfortable talking about problems they're having with, whatever it is, mental anxiety or whatever, and they feel more comfortable about it. And they should. That's a good thing that, we can talk about that. It's, we talk about our physical health. We can talk about our mental health, too. That's a huge component of how you're going to do in life. Now, I guess I want to know about Project CARE, because you were talking about food insecurity. I guess, there's so many food pantries and government programs to make sure students are being fed, and yet there's still food insecurity. So what is Project CARE, and how do you face that food insecurity that's obviously they still are struggling with? So
Project CARE is an umbrella term that talks about support in the financial area for students. And so we've had a food pantry for, I believe, about 9 years. Okay, and then we also have funding for our students who might have something that came up. Maybe I had a student who totaled his car and he couldn't come to class. And so they can apply for funding so that they can get bus cards so that they can come to class.
Oh.
I've had students who had a recent loss of job, but they are in classes and they don't have gas money, so we can provide gas cards, and we also provide Walmart cards. And that's all done through counseling. Not that it's a counseling issue, but chances are if there's something going on in that area, there might be some other ways we can help support them. And so in terms of your other part of that question, which is, well, there's a lot of support, why aren't they being used?
Right.
Government support, while is great, it's hard to navigate just in general. And so that's what we take our role in, is to help students navigate, say getting SNAP benefits. It's not easy to just go and get SNAP benefits. There's just things that the students need to do, and so we can help students with that. I do think there's a pride piece around, especially around food insecurity. I've had students that are like, no, I don't want to take any, I'll leave it for someone else, and they're telling me they have no food for the next week until they get paid. That's part of it as well. So I think there's a lot of reasons why it's not being accessed as much as we would like,
Right, and then you can get them to get the things they need.
Correct.
Like gas. I mean, to get to school, they need to get there.
Yeah, well, and what you mentioned earlier too, I think our students are very open to have the discussion. Sometimes it's the family component or the cultural component that kind of comes in the way, and that's the part where we try to create culturally sensitive approach to services as well, and helping our students understand that. I think that's where the food pantry comes in and kind of creates that start point where we help them realize the support they're receiving, and then work with them to kind of work through some of those, cultural norms that kind of, or pride that maybe gets in the way, helping them have those conversations with their family about the benefits they're receiving. And so sometimes I think what's needed too is more community education for our parents, for our families to know that this is not a bad thing. This is, we want our students to be successful, and the only way they can be is if we meet their basic needs first. And so part of our role working together too is how can we continue to expand these type of support for students, as we're constantly looking for grants and funding source. We have as Teresa mentioned, our food pantry that hopefully soon will kind of expand into a much larger pantry that will be much more accessible, and do it in a way that is more of a norm, that feels comfortable to access. Right now, where we have it right now, students, we have to walk them to that location. Sometimes that doesn't always feel comfortable. So with this new location of our food pantry, it will allow students to come in and it'll just be part of their routine as a student here in Moraine. So
no big deal. That's
really what we're
no
trying
big deal. That's what we're trying to do with our services. It's not a big deal. Just come by. It's not a big deal.
Well, and also it's not forever. We're helping you gain success so that you can take care of yourself in the future. So it's just this we just need to give you some stepping stones to
Yeah.
get to the place where you're taking, care of yourself.
Well, and the way I look at that is get the support now, because we want them to then go back to the community and give back to the community. And we know, we see many of our students return and they talk about how great that little help in that moment helped them to then achieve a long-term goal. And then the hope is that it creates a positive feeling for them to then give back to the community or give back to Moraine.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So I guess you're actually doing some of the future needs, which is getting this bigger, better, easier access pantry. Is there anything else you're looking toward the future that you need or you're hoping to do?
Yeah, I mean, we always have a wish list. I will tell you that. For us, there are a number, like I mentioned before, there are a number of state mandates. The challenge with meeting some of those mandates is that there's not always funded attached to them. So we are constantly looking for avenues to fund some of the things we need to establish with the mandates, or even looking at the needs of our students and saying, how can we kind of tackle this, right? So growing our services is one thing, growing our team is another, even looking at our space and saying, is it conducive to even trauma? Like, we don't provide trauma counseling, but if someone is, we see a lot of students that have experienced trauma in their life. Is our space a safe space for them to come so that they at least can share with us some of the challenges they're facing, so then we can connect them to someone in the community, whether it's a counselor or a social service agency that then can provide them the support. So we are constantly identifying things that we need. It's a growing wish list, and so, but we try to tackle, one bit at a time and continue growing our services every year.
You've got to have the wish list because you do want to go forward. You want it bigger, better for the students. And so it's important to keep that wish list and keep it in front of people. We need this.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Before we go, anything else you want to mention to our viewers about the great Counseling and Career Development Center that you are both a part of?
I would just say, for whoever this audience is, if you have any questions, if you have any concerns about somebody, we're really good about making sure that we don't only want to tell the students about our services, we want the faculty, we want the staff, we want the community to know that we exist, because those are the best referral sources. Students do refer themselves, but often it's the people, their parents, their community members that say, hey, you should see if they have a counseling department at Moraine Valley.
Right.
And then it's like, oh yeah, they do. And so that's something that I would just wish that this kind of program could really emphasize, is there is help there. There's no reason you should suffer in silence. I guess that's the point.
Yeah, very good point.
I agree. Well, and piggyback off of that, like I said, this is a whole new role for me. This is a whole new role for the department and the college. So my goal is really to get out in the community, and I think that together we can help one another. My goal is to kind of meet more of our services that are in the community and build those relationships so we can refer our students out. But we have so many great services and programs at Moraine, certificate programs, ongoing, community events. I think it's just a great campus, and my hope is to really help the community come and connect with us as well and kind of grow together as a whole.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you both for coming in today.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for having
You
us.
have a great program, and I think you're such a really tremendous benefit to the students and families there, because if someone is suffering within your family, the whole family is affected.
Absolutely.
So this is great. Thanks for coming in today.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for watching us today. We will meet with Moraine next month, and we hope you join us then. Have a wonderful day. Bye.